My name is Sherry, and I am making a little podcast about my mother's ashes. So, my mother passed at the height of COVID in 2020 at 103 from the VA home in Chula Vista. And everything was on hold, burials, funerals. She was cremated at Neptune. So she had this in place before she passed. Her plans, it was all paid for and everything. She was so proud of this and spoke of it often. She was cremated at Neptune, and then she owned her plot at Greenwood in San Diego by her mother, her father, and her two brothers. So she was so happy about this. So then we'd all lived in San Diego forever. So then in the meantime, after my mother passed, I moved to Seattle. And my cousin, who'd also lived in San Diego forever, who used to visit her at the veterans home, he went to Arizona. He moved to Arizona. So then one time he was visiting San Diego and he offered to pick up the ashes for me. I had told Vince at Neptune I would pick up the ashes by Christmas, and he said fine. So there was never an issue of being late. So my cousin picked them up. But then somehow he was under the impression that he saved my mother from a pauper's grave. And he proceeded to tell everyone that. Anyone that would listen. He told this story how he saved my mother's ashes from a pauper's grave. So I said, well, I don't understand. Was I late in picking up the ashes? Because I thought, well, was Vince mad? Was he inundated with ashes with the COVID thing and burials on a hold and I didn't realize it? No one ever said anything to me. Vince never called. I mean, he had my number. I'm on the death certificate, the remains permit. I'm the only daughter. And anyway, so then I decided, we agreed to meet in San Diego and place the ashes at Greenwood. But then as time passed, well, part of the problem was Greenwood raised their prices from $2,000 to $3,000. Now, this was after she already owned her plot. They have to dig the hole, smooth it out, etc., do all of these things. So I said I wanted to wait, but then my cousin became angry, I guess, that I wanted to wait. I was indecisive because I was starting to think about putting her at Miramar. Well, I wasn't sure. And so then, without my knowledge, he placed her at Prescott, Arizona, where he lives. And without my knowledge, so he told the VA, he called the burial scheduling office and told them that he had no idea in the world where I was. He couldn't get a hold of me. He hadn't heard from me in years. So it was November in 21. And then March of 22 was when he began calling. I mean, I have a history of like 20 phone calls, plenty of texts with him. So but the interesting thing is he told the VA how he saved her from a pauper's grave. So now recently in my research about this whole thing, of course I'm like really angry that this whole thing happened. I mean, there's no way I could visit my mother in Arizona, not to mention she owned her plot at Greenwood. Not to mention I'm the agent in the trust, durable power of attorney, etc., which Scott knew. So I called Vince and I said, Scott at Vince at Neptune, and I said, Scott is telling everyone this story about how he saved her from a pauper's grave. I'm like, were you mad? Was I late? Is there something I'm not understanding? And he told me, no, we would never use that term. That's not a term that applies. I've been in the business for 30 years. We would never use that term at Neptune. Also, Scott had to call me, and I had to tell Vince it was okay for him to pick up the ashes. He could not have done anything with the ashes without calling me. And of course, he had my phone number. And he couldn't have done anything with the ashes because it said Greenwood as the destination. So, in other words, this whole pauper's grave story, I don't know I don't know where Scott got this information. I don't know why he's saying it. Scott and his sister Jean seem very much want to make themselves very glorious and want to make me look very bad. They're really into shame and punishment. It's humiliating. And I don't know why, as adults, they would do that kind of thing. But anyway, that's this part of the story now. But then these words have been repeated back to me from someone at the VA. So my point is, he concocted this false story. But of course, people hang on this pauper's grave statement, and it's false. So I am doing everything I can to correct this. But one wonders where he got that information and why he is saying it. Anyway, thank you for listening. To be continued. And that's just the first part of my little story of finding my mother's ashes. Thank you.